to episode 3 of the 6-part series on leadership. My name is Ajay. Once again, I'm here with strategic leadership trainer and psychologist Adrian McInman. Compared to the 2 previous videos, I assume this interview will be more intensive. Could you please explain why you train managers about sexually destructive leadership?
Sure. I have several privileges that others can never have. I am white. I am male. I was born in a relatively safe country, New Zealand. As a child, I received free education, including free university education. And New Zealand was the first country to let women vote. As a result, I've never gone to a job interview like a painter in a different country did and was told, "You look a lot better than your painting, sweetie. I'm happy to expose your work if you can just give me a nice massage."
Yes, I was right. This will be more intense. Could you please define sexual harassment, sexual assault, and sexually destructive leadership?
Yes, this is a topic I'm passionate about. As for definitions, they vary between countries. Regardless, the Australian Human Rights Commission is a good starting point. They suggest sexual harassment has 3 key elements: conduct that is unwelcome, conduct of a sexual nature, and a reasonable person, aware of all the circumstances, would anticipate the possibility that the person subjected to the conduct would feel offended, humiliated, or intimidated. Examples of sexual harassment include making conditions of employment dependent upon sexual favours. Sexual harassment usually violates civil laws, whereas sexual assault is usually a criminal act. Examples of sexual assault include rape and attempted rape. I define sexually destructive leaders as leaders in a position of formal power who intentionally or unintentionally repeatedly use or encourage sexually harassing behaviour or sexual assault, or knowingly allow their employees or others on their premises to engage in sexually harassing behaviour or sexual assault.
Can you please give me an example of sexual assault in the workforce?
Here's one that was published in Newsweek. A soldier arrived at a US Army base. Less than 2 weeks later, he was gang raped in the barracks by men who said they were showing him who was in charge of the United States. When he reported the attack to unit commanders, he was told, "It must have been your fault. You must have provoked them." This situation has all 3 elements of the sexual harassment definition. The conduct was unwelcome, of a sexual nature, and a reasonable individual could anticipate that he would feel intimidated. This scenario would also be classified by the more stronger term of sexual assault.
I think all my audience will understand that example of sexual assault. Could you please now provide an example of sexual harassment in the workforce?
Sure. A study was conducted with female employees in the Dutch creative industry. The sample included actresses, artists, dancers, models and musicians. 21 of the 32 women reported that demands for sexual favours were common in auditions. For example, they cited examples of being asked about their bra size, whether they were virgins, whether they enjoyed masturbation, and what was their favourite sex positions. The woman told the researchers that if they answered such questions or remained silent and did not leave the room, then the male interviewers would ask them for sexual favours, such as taking off their clothes, kissing them, or giving them oral sex.
How prevalent is sexually destructive leadership?
With regards to sexual harassment and sexual assault, it's worth noting that the Newsweek article mentioned that nearly 50,000 male veterans screened positive for military sexual trauma at the Department of Veteran Affairs. So the prevalence is probably higher than most people realise. However, with regards to sexually destructive leadership, it's worth noting that the majority of the women in the Dutch study believed they had to accept sexual harassment as a mandatory component of career advancement. Bear in mind that Holland is a fairly well-educated and well-to-do country, and we can only assume that the prevalence of sexually destructive leadership is even higher in other countries.
What should leaders do to decrease the likelihood of sexual harassment and sexual assault?
First, organisations need to create and implement a sexual harassment policy. It needs to be a typed document that makes it very clear that sexual assault and sexual harassment are unlawful and will not be tolerated. The document should define and provide examples of sexual harassment, sexual assault, and sexually destructive leadership. It should also explain how sexual harassment and sexual assault allegations will be handled and what are the consequences. Finally, it should outline the responsibilities of management and staff. Second, organisations need to provide education and training on sexual harassment, sexual assault, and sexually destructive leadership. Such training should be part of a workplace induction program, which includes mandatory follow-up education sessions. The training should focus on what behaviours constitute sexual harassment and sexual assault, encouraging employee bystander action, and various options to deal with such behaviours.
What should leaders do if an allegation of sexual harassment or sexual assault is brought to their attention?
Leaders need to respond to sexual harassment and sexual assault using a pre-planned complaints procedure that is in line with the laws and culture of the country and EEO compliance mandates. It's important to use an investigative strategy that protects privacy interests and ensures the confidentiality of the alleged victim and the accused offender. Appropriate leaders should have received training with case studies and role plays to handle allegations.
To finish, is there anything else you want to say to our audience?
Leaders need to create a healthy and safe work environment for everyone. Hence, consider these words from author Deepak Chopra. Every time you are tempted to react in the same old way, ask if you want to be a prisoner of the past or a pioneer of the future. Then, if you want to be a pioneer of the future, set a good example.